Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Tuesday. It's November 19th. It is 2024. We have a 6-game NBA slate to talk about here on today's podcast, Riding Solo. Hoping our good buddy Chief will feel better tomorrow, under the weather tonight. So riding solo to talk about some NBA Cup games. We have a lot of injuries on this 6-game slate. So obviously you're going to be checking news throughout the day and just going to give you guys a first look at what to expect here on this NBA Cup slate with, so like there's laundry list for a ton of these spots. So we'll talk about it. And some really good games. Obviously, everyone knows that I absolutely love the NBA Cup. I think it's awesome. So I'm really excited that we have another NBA Cup slate, 6 games instead of a bigger slate here, but still I think this slate is a lot of fun. So we have Cleveland Boston. I mean, this is the game that we have all kind of been wanting to watch with the Cup and stuff. So really excited about this one. I was looking before the podcast at like the NBA Cup standings. You know, my Magic off to a good start, 2-0. So that's great to see. Their point differential is fantastic. Detroit off to a 2-0 start. So that's awesome for them. Atlanta 2-0 start in this Cleveland-Boston division. This Cleveland-Boston game is huge for the NBA Cup from that Group C, with Atlanta already having 2 wins. So watching that one for sure. And then, looking at the Western side, Houston, Portland, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Los Angeles Lakers, Suns, Warriors, Pelicans, all undefeated. So appreciate the effort. Yeah, I appreciate the effort too. So, Boston and Cleveland, best game. Denver, Memphis, depending on Jokic, is really interesting for DFS, but we'll talk about that here. What's up, chat? A lot of people hanging out late. I know it's later than usual. Was watching some television with the wife since it was a solo podcast, and trying to get through a couple of the shows that we're way behind on. So appreciate you hanging out live later than usual, and ready to have a fantastic Tuesday slate. We get started with Cleveland at Boston. This game has a 232 total. Highest, or I guess it's the second highest. The Utah Lakers is just as high. But 232 total, Boston a 5-point favorite. On the Cleveland side, LeVert's questionable, Merrill's questionable, Okoro's questionable, Strus and Wade out. On the Boston side, Porzingis remains out, and Pritchard is questionable. The grind doesn't stop. You're right. I mean, listen, I'm always grinding. It's almost 9 years of doing the morning grind 5 days a week. So I'm always grinding. I love the show. I love hanging out with everybody. What show are we watching? We are watching Outer Banks, where we like Outer Banks. We haven't watched the second part of the season that came out, so can't stop, won't stop. Yep. All right, let's talk about this Cleveland side first. Obviously, big game here going up against Boston. 2 really good teams. I think this is one of those types of games that you're probably throwing out a little bit of the defensive stats. You know, obviously, Boston, a really good defensive team. Cleveland, a fantastic defensive team. So you're kind of throwing that away. I think this game is going to be a lot faster than people realize. You know, Cleveland has been playing a little bit faster than people realize this year, even though they're playing really good defense. So, just looking at this, it's just one of those games. If this was just a regular game in November, I'd probably be like, it's cool. It's Cleveland, Boston. But it's a NBA Cup game. It's a huge NBA Cup game for this group. And I mean, this is definitely one of those games where I feel like you're going to get 2 to 4 pieces from in tournaments and feel really good about it, because it's just going to be an awesome basketball game. Is Boston eliminated if they lose? I wouldn't say they're eliminated, but I think it's next to impossible to get in with 2 losses. So the fact that Boston lost already, I would say if they lose this game, it's next to impossible. Cleveland would have to lose multiple games, I would feel, for that to be a thing. But it's next to impossible. Like, you're going to likely see that fourth like wild card team be a one-loss team with a really good place differential, or point differential. So I would say probably mathematically no, but yeah, I would say probably if Boston loses this game, they're likely out of the NBA Cup. All right, Cleveland side, man, you like Mitchell in this spot. I like Mitchell in this spot because this is the type of game that Mitchell goes out there and he plays 40 minutes. I know we haven't seen that from him this year. I was looking at it before the show. He capped out at 35 minutes. This is the game that Donovan Mitchell goes out and he balls out. He's coming off of 3 straight games with 60-plus fantasy points. This is the game you target Donovan Mitchell, and you just hope he has one of those monster games. Outside of Mitchell, man, I like a lot. Mitchell might get 40 actual points. This might be a huge game for him. Ty Jerome got the start for Mitchell the other night. Don't look too much into the 32 minutes that he played. They gave Mitchell the night off against Charlotte. Shocking. They still won by 14. And yeah, I mean, Ty Jerome crushed. I hope you all played him. That was over the weekend. I always take the NBA slates off on the weekend. So, I mean, Jerome could potentially be a little bit useful if LeVert ends up sitting and Okoro's out and Merle's out. I think that's when he could potentially be. But yeah, I mean, I like Mobley. I like Allen. I like Garland. I think this is, again, one of those games that you're just going to play these guys. I think Garland has a lot of upside. I think Evan Mobley has a lot of upside in this type of matchup. And I think Allen has a lot of upside in this type of matchup. So I don't MME NBA anymore. I don't have time. It's so hard to even get away to like check on one lineup to kind of finish it out at the end of the night with the kids. So I'm definitely going to be heavily invested betting into this game, depending on what the lines look like. So I think this game is just a fantastic game to stack. So I don't have an issue of getting like 2 of these studs and just hoping that this is a great basketball game. I think this is going to be like big time playoff atmosphere type of game. It being in Boston too is also like, I think is great. So the Boston side, I mean, I like Tatum and Brown a lot. You know, this is a spot where I feel like Jason Tatum's going to show up. He's going to have a monster game, and he's going to do everything he can to try to win this game for his team. Like I said, this is a huge game for them. They're basically eliminated if they lose this game. Jaylen Brown, we've seen him shooting lights out recently. Over 42% shooting 4 of his last 5 games. So I think both of those guys are fantastic options. I like Derek White. These are the types of games where I feel like Derek White plays a lot of minutes and he just kind of does his thing. So I think Derek White is really interesting. If Pritchard ends up sitting, I think Pritchard ends up playing this game. But if he ends up sitting, I think you could take some shots on Drew. Drew's 5,200 in a game where they're likely going to do everything they can to keep Drew on the floor when Mitchell's on the floor. So Drew plays defense on Mitchell. Drew's not as good as a defender as he was, 4 or 5 years ago, but he's still very capable. So I feel like Drew is going to be out there a lot in this game. I think Drew at 5,200, just for the amount of time he's going to be on the floor, is great. So again, I could see myself playing 2 to 4 of these guys. White, Drew, cheap. Brown, Tatum, expensive. This should be a great basketball game. So, I mean, in that aspect, I think you're definitely looking at this game with some exposure, getting some exposure to this game. Rush threw for 354. I didn't watch any of the football game. I could care less about that Texans-Cowboys game. I did not realize that Rush threw for 354 yards. Anyway. All right, we got Charlotte at Brooklyn is where we go next. 222 total. Brooklyn a 2-point favorite. Jeffries, Richards, Williams out for Charlotte. Man questionable. Brooklyn side, Bogdanovich, Claxton, Sharp out. He threw 150 dinks and dunks. Hey, I mean, yeah, right? Who else got their notepads out? Listen, this is a first look. We got to start in the right spot. All right, we got another NBA Cup game. I'll try not to keep saying it, but again, I feel like these games are different. We've already seen that these games are different. So looking at the Charlotte side of things, I mean, Brooklyn's been awful defensively this year. Like, it's just a team that has been awful defensively. They're 26 in defensive efficiency. Looking at the Charlotte side, I think this is a spot LaMelo could ball out. I mean, just look at the shot attempts for him. 27 or more shot attempts in 4 of his last 5 games. 30 actual points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's always capable of triple-double upside. I think LaMelo, even at 9,800, is very much a guy that you want to consider for large field tournaments today. Don't hate Brandon Miller. I like Brandon Miller more if Man ends up sitting in this game. Bridges, I think, is definitely playable here at 6,300. He's been playing really well. His rebound and assist numbers have been really solid. So I don't hate him. Like, just looking at the big situation, it's just so hard to kind of figure out. I think they want to play Grant Williams in this spot against Brooklyn. So I would probably prefer Grant Williams in this spot if I was going to play one of these cheap under 5K plays. On the Brooklyn side, I think I actually have to accept the fact that Charlotte might not be bad against bigs this year. It's hard reality, I guess. But they've actually been a lot more solid against bigs this year. I found that out the hard way. But for Brooklyn, if this was a regular game, I probably wouldn't have a ton of exposure to Brooklyn. But the one thing that like Charlotte has kind of struggled with is like high usage or like wing type players. So I feel like that is Cam Thomas, and like he is the one guy that's like capable of like having that like lights out night from like the wing and like shooting 50% and scoring, 25 actual points. So I feel like Cam Thomas could do really well in this game. Outside of that, I mean, Ben Simmons is still 4,700. Maybe they give him a little bit extra in this game just because it is a NBA Cup game. They are 0-1 in the NBA Cup. I was trying to look what day they played to see. I hate that like it's so hard to figure out the NBA Cup stuff, but anyway, wasn't it didn't they play the Knicks? Anyway, sorry. So yeah, I mean, Ben Simmons, I don't expect him to play like 30 minutes, but maybe if he gets 25 minutes instead of 22 minutes, he has a little bit of upside here. But now that they moved him to center only, I hate that. It really kind of hurts his upside. But with Claxton out, and Clowney, I don't think I want to do the whole Clowney thing. I think they're going to probably try to play Simmons a few extra minutes, maybe play Cam Johnson a few extra minutes. So maybe we take shots on like Cam Johnson and Ben Simmons more than we take shots on like Clowney. It's kind of it for me. Watford did play on Sunday. He played 13 minutes. So again, I just don't think I want to play Clowney. I think they try to spread that like situation out. Yeah, I mean, center only, Andrew, I agree. I don't necessarily love Simmons at center only. I'm assuming you mean Zach Collins, or no, not Zach Collins. What Collins are you talking about? Simmons or Collins? Do you mean Zach Collins? I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? If Wemby doesn't play, like Wemby's doubtful, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I think it'd be Zach Collins, no doubt. Especially with Holmgren out. FanDuel, Simmons is point guard center, solid. Yeah, that's crazy, right? All right, we got Denver at Memphis. I was shocked they have a total out for this game. 226.5. Memphis a 4-point favorite. Gordon out, Jokic questionable. This line definitely suggests that like Jokic probably does not play in this game. I assume that he doesn't play, and it's like personal reasons, but I assume with this type of line, Memphis being a 4-point favorite without Edie, without Gigi Jackson, without Ja, without Spencer, Smart questionable. I feel like this line definitely suggests that Jokic is not going to play. So let's talk Jokic playing. I have interest in Jokic if he plays. Obviously, he's been absolutely crushing right before he left. If he's out, man, like I was trying to pull up Court IQ. Court IQ is so slow for me right now. I don't know why, but so Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic off the floor this year. The biggest increases, if it will load, have been, I would assume, the biggest increases would be Michael Porter Jr., Watson, and Braun. Gosh, it is just all right. Well, I'm patiently waiting. Westbrook has seen a huge increase. Peyton Watson has been the biggest increase with Jokic off the floor, but he really hasn't showed enough on the DFS side. Sarge is the guy that I definitely would play here if Jokic is ruled out. 32 and 34 minutes in the last two games, 27 and 33 fantasy points, still only 4,700. He could go for 30 plus here. So Sarge would be the guy that I'd play. I would play Sarge over Ben Simmons, who we just talked about. I think Sarge has more ability to play more minutes in this system, so I would play Sarge over Ben Simmons. Like going back to that last question, so I have interest in Sarge, assuming that Jokic is out, and then like I think you're probably going to take a few shots on like Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, Braun. Like I said, Watson's price has come up now where like if he scores 30 fantasy points, he is okay, but he doesn't like kill you if that happens at that price point. So if he's popular, I'd be underweight on him. I have interest in Christian Braun more than I have interest in Watson. Michael Porter Jr. is always somebody that can break slates, even though like he's kind of been hit or miss this year too. So I think Sarge is the guy you're definitely taking shots on if Jokic is out. If Jokic plays, I don't have a ton of interest in Denver secondary pieces. It's just they're all kind of priced with Jokic being out. On the Memphis side, yeah, I mean, Edey out and John Morant out is big news here on the Memphis side. And like Edey, minutes wise, is not like huge news because he's like a 20 to 25 minute guy. But I mean, he is a guy that when he's in the game definitely gets a lot of usage and production. We just saw this game. Was it Sunday? Yeah, we just saw this game on Sunday, and no one really went off. The difference is this is like a NBA Cup game, so I definitely would have interest in Triple J, Desmond Bane, and Pittman Jr. in this spot. Like Pittman Jr., he is someone. Oh, I guess he's six. Gosh, he's so expensive still. Probably don't play a lot of him with that. Like that price is just really high in my opinion. But there's going to be a lot of second team usage here. I could see like Santai at 6,400 getting like an extra 10, 15 minutes in this game, and really kind of have that second team usage. But Desmond Bane, he's going to be the guy that's out there shooting shots. Triple J, like I said, those are the guys that I really like. I don't know who really kind of benefits from Edey being out. I assume it'd be Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark kind of finished the game the other night. He played 22 minutes, but Edey played in that game. So Brandon Clark, I just don't know if I'd rate Brandon Clark over Sarge on the other side of this game or Zach Collins. It'd be really interesting to see what their projections kind of come out to here. And I saw the question about Strother in chat. He had a huge third quarter the other night, and they definitely let him play deep into the fourth quarter, even in a game that wasn't necessarily too close. So he had 20 fantasy points in the third quarter. So I saw that when I was looking earlier. So I don't think you really expect that every game. You obviously could take shots. It'd be interesting to see where projections are for him. If he's projected for like 22 to 25 minutes at 3,600, he could project decent. So it'd be interesting to see where he projects throughout the day tomorrow, especially with the Jokic news. I think that's kind of it for me on the Memphis side. Williams could potentially play a few extra minutes, but I really do think that it will end up being like Brandon Clark getting a few extra minutes in this game with Edey out. New Orleans at Dallas, 223.5 total here. Dallas an 11-point favorite. Alvarado, Hawkins, Jones, McCollum, Murray, Zion out. Luka questionable, Exum out is where we're at with Dallas. Go to New Orleans here first. This is a really tough team to figure out right now. So many people out for this team that it's a really, really tough team to kind of figure out. I was looking at game flow for them in their most recent game against the Lakers, and it's really hard. You like what you see minutes-wise out of like Ingram and Boston, and they ran out Jalen Noel a lot last game. Maybe they do that again. Like he's played 24-plus minutes in 3 straight games, so maybe they roll him out for a good amount again. They're just kind of hurting on the bodies aspect. Murphy did not play that game, though, so I assume that like Trey Murphy eats into it. I wrote down on my notes to make sure I mention Trey Murphy here. Trey Murphy, 5,600, 30 minutes last time out. I think that's kind of what we expected to wanting to see from Trey Murphy in a game. And like I said, they sat him on the second end of a back-to-back. He had that hamstring. So I think Trey Murphy getting 30 minutes, 30-plus minutes at 5,600 is a really strong play here. Boston Jr. is always somebody I don't mind taking shots on, but he's also gotten to the point where he's so expensive. So I probably don't go to Boston Jr. Brandon Ingram, if this game stays close, it's probably because BI is having a big game. I've said this so many times before. I could see that. And I see chat asking about Jay Huff. I personally don't trust the role unless he starts. Going back to that Memphis game, unless he starts, I don't trust the role. But with Brandon Clark being back, I feel like Brandon Clark is going to be the guy. But I could be wrong. I'm wrong. It'd be interesting to see what projections say. But I don't hate the idea of Huff, but I think there's better options. That's kind of it for me on the New Orleans side. I don't hate the idea of playing Missy at 5K in this matchup. I just think that there's better cheap centers on just overall. Robinson, Earl, Green, like these guys. Javonte Green, I know Dave's asking about Javonte Green. Guy just kind of sits in the corner, which hurts his rebounding percentage and stuff like that. So I think you're going to find better value plays than Javonte Green, even with all these guys out. It's BI. It's Murphy. I really like Trey Murphy today. I love the fact that we saw him play 30 minutes last time out. He's taken double-digit shot attempts in every game since coming back. We finally saw him get the 30 minutes last time out. Dallas side is pretty simple. I feel like if Luka sits in this game, I think you're looking at Kyrie, obviously, and then I think you're looking at Washington. PJ Washington coming off a huge game against the Thunder the other night. In that game without Luka, he's obviously going to be rebounding more and being more active. So I obviously would take some shots on him. I'd probably take some shots on Clay if we get news that Luka doesn't play in this game. He just shot terrible the other night. Like 1 for 11 from the field, 1 for 8 from 3. He had a really bad shooting night. I think that you go back to the well on him. I wish they were giving Gafford more run, but they're not. Gafford buffed up in the offseason. He looks awesome to start the year, but just not getting enough minutes. If Luka sits, you could potentially take some shots on like Najee Marshall. It's all going to kind of come down to, does Luka play? Does Luka not play? Type of situation for me. If Luka plays, I don't have a ton of interest in Dallas in this game. I think they beat New Orleans pretty bad in this game if Luka plays. But if Luka's out, taking shots on Kyrie, taking shots on Washington, taking shots on Clay. If Luka plays, I probably don't play a lot of Luka today. I know it's scary, but he's not 100% right now. You could tell. So I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of give him a day against New Orleans. So shorthanded, New Orleans here. I mean, this is a game. Dallas already took a loss in the NBA Cup, so might be one of those spots they give Luka the day. Thunder at Spurs, 222.5 total here. Thunder, an 8.5-point favorite. Hartenstein, Holmgren, Joe, Topic, and Jalen Williams out. And then Sohan and Wemby doubtful for the Spurs. We'll talk about them in just a second. We'll go to the Thunder. Now we're adding another piece. Isaiah Joe has been ruled out for this game. So now, okay, SGA. Fantastic play. Even more so with Wemby out. SGA, usage, incredible. Jalen Williams, incredible. If you want to pay up for center, I hate the fact that he's center only now. But I don't want to start talking about other people and accidentally not like give them the love that they deserve. They are an incredible play, like incredible spot. Definitely play them if you can fit them in. Let's go to the value plays because I think the value plays is where it's at. Isaiah Joe played most of that game the other night against Dallas, and Lou Dort still played 36 minutes. He's 4,800. He has at least 30 fantasy points in 3 of his last 5 games. Obviously interested in Dort. A little bit of interest in Aaron Wiggins. He's been starting. He should see the fourth quarter run potentially now with the news that it could, I guess, realistically, it could end up being like a Kendrick Williams or Caruso finishing, but they just haven't been playing Caruso a bunch of minutes. So I think there's a possibility Aaron Wiggins finishes now that Joe is ruled out. So if Aaron Wiggins finishes at 4,400, he has the potential to play 30 plus minutes. So I have some interest in him. Wallace is cheap. I don't hate that. I thought it was really interesting that they ran Kendrick Williams to finish the game the other night against Dallas. Dallas was playing with a little bit of size in that game towards the end. So I think that like Kendrick Williams got that run. He's tempting at 3,200 if he played like 4 extra minutes. He gets 22 minutes here. Like that could potentially be really intriguing at 3,200. But SGA, Williams, top end plays, really like Dort minutes wise. And I think Wiggins has some potential to finish. I think it's going to be Williams or not Williams. I think it's going to be Wiggins, Kendrick, or Wallace that finish the game instead of Isaiah Joe. So, I mean, for what it's worth, I think that's kind of where we're at. Spurs side, I mean, Wemby being doubtful is huge. I mean, I don't have to pull up court IQ. We know how much this guy is huge. It's just huge, right? I was pulling. Trae Young has 17 assists. Solid. I mean, I didn't do anything on FanDuel tonight, so I played DraftKings. I had a good DraftKings team. I think I finished top 25 in the $40 single entry, so that's always good. Okay, back to the Spurs. We take Wemby off the floor. And who else? Oh, Sohan's out. So we take Wemby and Sohan off the floor. And let's see who's really popping here on court IQ. Yeah, the New York blowout. I had Cat too. So the New York blowout could have been a lot better. Obviously, Zach Collins, huge bump. We already knew that. Castle gets a really nice bump in points per minute. Castle is averaging 1.06 fantasy points per minute in 112 minutes without Wemby on the floor. Vassell seems to be the biggest, but his minutes scare me so much. He's not on the injury report, so that's great, but the minutes scare me if they do end up playing Vassell here more. He has some upside. San Antonio already has a loss in the NBA Cup, so I don't know if they necessarily try to risk Vassell playing a lot in this game. I don't know if I necessarily love or hate Chris Paul at 6,200. I'll be honest with you. Castle's probably my favorite play from the Spurs today at 4,900. Looking at the numbers, he definitely sees a nice increase with Wemby off the floor. Zach Collins right there with Castle, 5,500. Thunder down some big men. So I think this is a good spot for Collins. I think it's a good spot for Castle. And then you got your tournament darts. I think Paul, Vassell, and Johnson and Champagne are all tournament darts today. Trying to figure out which one of those works the best. Trey Jones only played 19 minutes in his return from the ankle injury. So I don't know if I would necessarily love Trey Jones until we see him play more minutes here. But yeah, a lot of dart throws for the Spurs for large field tournaments today. I feel like there's so many that like I'm probably missing one or two dart throws here. I'm trying to think. Is it Mama UK Lashvi? Sandro. We'll call him Sandro. He's 3,500, and we know he's a huge fantasy point per minute producer. Could we dare try him? I think you have to. Like, if you make like some lineups and you're throwing darts, Sandro. Yeah, I probably did not nail that. That's a tough one. Like, I've been way better with my names over the last couple of years, but whew, that one's tough. I'll call him Sandro. I think you have to add him in your like dart throws. Just because of like Wemby being out, if the game gets out of hand. I mean, there's so many factors there's so many ways that like Sandro plays 15 minutes and he can score 30 fantasy points in 15 minutes. So he's another dart throw. So good plays, in my opinion, Collins and Castle. Dart throws, Vassell, Paul, Johnson, Champagne, Sandro. I hope that helps. That's my best I can do on breaking down the Spurs. They're hard to break down, first of all, and now that like Wemby's doubtful, it makes it even tougher. But that'd be my best guess from San Antonio is that kind of situation. And like kind of have an idea, like Wemby being out the other night. We saw Zach Collins play 26 minutes. We saw Sandro finish the fourth quarter in a game that wasn't necessarily close and play the whole fourth quarter and score 21 fantasy points. So first half minutes, though, Zach Collins got 15 first half minutes. So if that game stays close, maybe you're getting 30-plus minutes here from Zach Collins. So I think him and Castle are the two that I really want to kind of target here in from this team. And Keldon Johnson didn't play the fourth quarter and had 25 fantasy points. So if you think this game's going to stay close, I think he has some upside as well. All right, we finish it out with Utah at LA taking on the Lakers. 232 total. Lakers an 11-point favorite. Hendrick and Kessler out. Hachimura questionable. Hayes, Vanderbilt, and Wood out for the Lakers. Go to Utah here first. Waiting for Markkanen to show up this season. It's been really weird. I was looking before the show. I was looking at like some usage numbers and stuff for Utah, and I don't know. I just want to see more from Markkanen. Like we're so used to Markkanen producing at such a high rate. Kessler being out definitely helps the rebounding numbers for Collins and Markkanen. I think Collins actually probably has just as much ceiling as Markkanen, so it'd be really interesting to see what the ownership here looks like. So, I mean, Kessler being out is huge. I think Markkanen, Collins in play. Philip, he played 24 minutes the other night, but I feel like that game, he had some upside to get some fourth quarter run in that game, and he didn't really get the run out that we kind of wanted. He's 5K. You can play him at power forward, not just center. So I wouldn't mind taking shots on him at 5K. I really think like Collins and Markkanen are interesting. If this game stays close, right? If you're playing AD or LeBron on the other side of this game, I think you run it back with a Markkanen or a Collins. I think one of those two guys are going to have a big game for this game to stay close. I mean, you can always get the Jordan Clarkson goes bonkers game, but yeah, I mean, you're just not getting enough run from him. But he's only 5,200, so Clarkson has scored at least 30 fantasy points in 5 straight games, and he's only 5,200. Maybe they let him play a little bit more with this being an NBA Cup game, but I think at 5,200, getting 30 fantasy points with the upside to score 40 is playable. I think it's really interesting that they don't price them up. We don't get a ton of Jazz games because DraftKings leaves off those games most of the time. So maybe that's like in the pricing algorithm that they're just kind of overlooking him. And he's a guy that can add up stocks fast. So I like Clarkson more than I thought I would when I was doing research earlier today or earlier tonight. So maybe Clarkson, but I mean, Clarkson, Collins, and Markkanen would be the 3 that I'm looking at here from the Lakers. And like Markkanen, Collins more if I'm playing AD. I think you could play Clarkson regardless if you play AD or LeBron. I don't think you have to play those guys. I think Clarkson at that price, what he's been doing is solid. So, as far as the Lakers, I mean, I sound like a broken record by now, but I love how they're utilizing Anthony Davis in this offense. LeBron James is doing incredible things at his age. It hurts me to get out of bed, and he's older than me. So, shout out to LeBron. I prefer Anthony Davis over LeBron, but it is a spot where I think if you're playing either one of them, it's fine. They both have a ton of upside. With the way that the Lakers are running the offense right now, I think that AD has more ceiling on a nightly basis than LeBron. But we can't overlook the fact that like LeBron has 4 triple doubles in his last 5 games. So that ceiling is definitely massive still for LeBron. He had 76 fantasy points the other night. So if you are, like I said, if you are playing Markkanen or Collins, you want to run it back with LeBron or Anthony Davis, I don't have an issue. Like it'd be really interesting to see like what Sim Labs and like the optimizer spits out, because we do have so many like value centers. We might end up getting more LeBron than Anthony Davis in that Lakers like Utah like mini little stack that I was talking about. So Anthony Davis could end up being a little bit lower owned, especially with this game being a 10:30 game, kind of a island game. We could see lower ownership on LeBron or Anthony Davis here. So outside of those guys, I mean, Austin Reeves is just kind of consistent. He hasn't had as much ceiling here recently. I think Hachimura definitely matters, whether he's in or out. Dalton Connect would be very much in play for me at his price point if Hachimura sits. Seems like the Cam Reddish experience is kind of going away, and they're going to play Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect, when I was watching him play the other night, reminds me of like JJ Redick. Just goes out there and he shoots, and he has a really nice looking shot. So I think Dalton Connect at 4,500 with like a LeBron or AD, run it back with a Collins, Markkanen, or Clarkson is a nice little way to get different on this slate, because I think overall, I think this game is going to be lower owned than other games because it's an island game, because there's so much value. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind a little mini stack of this Utah Lakers game to be different. All right, that's it. I feel like that went pretty quick, but it was 40 minutes. So, I guess I can play the morning grind game. Why not? I don't have any bets ready, and I hate giving out bets when I don't have any ready. So I'm not going to do any bets. I will say I'm very interested in bets in that Cleveland Boston game, like I mentioned. I was quickly pulling up the Hard Rock app here in Florida to see. Hit my 5-pick parlay. That's always good. I had a big boost that maxed out like $50, and I did some alt line parlays for the Houston game. All right. Anyway, sorry, distracted. Morning grind game. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. We have a lot of options today. I think that there's a lot of really good plays. I think Sarge is the answer if we get news that Jokic sits. By far, I think he is the answer here. So, I mean, I obviously have a lot of interest in him. Yeah. All right, I'll say Sarge. If Jokic ends up playing, I gotta go to my boy, man. I gotta go to Lou Dort at 4,800 if Sarge doesn't become an option with Jokic. Over 8K to go under 5X. The bust today. A lot of awesome plays up here today. I mean, I like all of these studs. I'm gonna go Luka. If Luka plays, he's gonna be my bust today. If Luka ends up sitting in this price range, I'll go. I think I gotta go Jamal Murray. I just don't have as much interest in Jamal Murray as I have in everybody else. If Luka's out, like I said, then I'd have more interest in Kyrie. A lot of interest in Mitchell. A lot of interest in Ingram if that game stays close. So, yeah, I mean, I think I have to go Jamal Murray. Not saying Jamal Murray is a bad play. I just think there's better options. Favorite 6X play. A lot of great options today. But I kind of got to go a little chalky and say Zach Collins with Wemby doubtful in this matchup against the Thunder. Zach Collins goes 6X today. Absolutely love him in this spot. Favorite GPP ceiling play? So I was thinking about this earlier when I was looking at the slate, and I was like, man, who is that like ceiling play that just can break the slate? Especially, and the reason I say this, especially if Jokic, Luka, and Wemby all sit. Because like those are like the three stock answers to this question. Those guys have amazing ceiling. And I kept going back to Jason Tatum. I kept going back to playoff Tatum, going for 70-plus fantasy points in the spot, and being that guy in this matchup, must-win game to stay alive in the NBA Cup. Getting a win against Cleveland would be huge because if Cleveland beats Atlanta, then it all comes down to play or point differential. I kept going back to Jason Tatum as that ceiling play. Could potentially flop, but I mean, the NBA Cup in me really wants it to be Tatum. So I'm going to go Jason Tatum as my favorite GPP ceiling play today. Let's get weird GPP. There's a lot of options. I'm going to go back to that last game we were just talking about. Give me Jordan Clarkson. We have a lot of value on the slate. I don't think Jordan Clarkson is going to be chalky or popular at all. Over 30 fantasy points in 5 straight. Like I said, I don't know if it's like a DK pricing algorithm thing, but he's been scoring 30 fantasy points consistently, and he should not be this price. Utah is going to need him in this game if this game is going to stay close. So give me Jordan Clarkson to have a big game here, especially against the Lakers, right? Just there's a motivation there. That's going to wrap it up. I appreciate everyone hanging out over there on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. That way you know when we go live. Appreciate everyone hanging out on the solo podcast. We'll be back tomorrow talking hoops. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.